Shalom to my brothers and sisters, for you are called the bride of the Messiah. And shalom, shalom to the scattered Hebrew Israelites, for you are called the bride of Yhwsh. And Yhwsh is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Today, I bring you a short worship service, okay? Something that one of my brethren remind me to do. So when I was in my time of darkness, during that period of time, my brothers and sisters, I had to go to a homeless shelter. But little did I know, like our Father always do, He always have a reason for why all things happen because He sent me there for a reason. And one of the things that I learned from there, I met a brother who was a Jew. hmm I tell you, it's amazing whom the Most High put in your path. And he reminded me something that we need to do, my brothers and sisters, on his holy days and holy feast days, or whenever we come together to worship or to fellowship. He reminded me of what the Messiah instructed us to do that sometimes we forget to do, okay? The Messiah instructed us to do this one important thing to keep in remembrance of him. That was the breaking of the bread, the drinking of the wine, and the feet washing. It's the reason why he wanted us to do these things, to remember what he did for us. But most importantly, again, is to teach you spiritual things, and it's to teach you what Torah was trying to teach you, Hebrew Israelites. But you got caught up with the carnal things. You got caught up with the tasks of the Torah, and you were not understanding what Torah was trying to teach you. So the living word who came in the flesh, who was sent by our Father Yahuwah, came to the earthly realm and set the example for us. So I want to share a couple of scriptures with you and to show you some things we need to do when we keep a remembrance of the new covenant. Okay? Because remember, the covenant means what? Marriage. Just as the bride of the Lamb is married to the Messiah, who is Yhwsh HaMashiach, therefore the Hebrew Israelites are married to Yahuwah, who is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Because when you understand the word and you read the whole volume of the book, you will learn you're not in a religion, you're in a covenant. You are in a marriage, and you are committed to the Father and to the Son. For those who understand the biblical prophecies that pertains to these three groups. And these three groups are, you have the bride of the Lamb, the 144,000, and the nation of Israel. When you understand those biblical prophecies, then you will understand what I'm saying unto you. But let me show you a picture. My brother, he reminded me of what we need to do on these holy days, such as the Sabbath. I'm going to show this up and hopefully you can see it. Now, I make my own unleavened bread. I do it from scratch, and maybe in another video, I will share with you the recipe. And what I do is real simple. But as you can see here, we have the unleavened bread and we have pure grape juice, and you can buy these things from the store. Okay, and it's by Kadeem. All right, but when you pour, because the words say we're gonna be poor, Hebrew Israelites, you can get the 100% grape juice. Okay, 100%. Now, when you get pure grape juice like this is not meant to make a beverage out of, because this grape juice is concentrated. It's only to keep in remembrance of the new covenant, and you'll understand why. Now, for those who study the Torah, you will understand why about the grape juice, especially when you studied it with the Nazarite vows. Now, for those who have a problem with alcohol, you can drink the grape juice instead, so you will not be tempted to become drunk, because we know, according to the word, drunkenness is a sin. read 1 Corinthians chapter 6, and I think it's Revelations chapter 21 or chapter 22, and you will see you will see drunkenness listed as a sin that can keep you out of the kingdom of the Most High. Okay. I don't have a picture of my bread, but like I said before, we'll do this in another video to share. I'll do that in another video to share with you. But let's open up with the scriptures. I want you to turn to Acts chapter 2. Okay. Acts chapter 2. And we shall read verse 42. And when you read Acts chapter 2, this is the day when we have Pentecost to occur. And those that believe in the Messiah receive the water baptism by the apostle. So I do want to read one verse up higher so you can see that verse. Acts chapter 2, verse 41. Then they that gladly received his word were baptized, and the same day there were added unto them about 3,000 souls. And they continued steadfastly in the apostles' doctrine and fellowship, and in the breaking of bread, and in prayers. And fear came upon every soul, and many wonders and signs were done by the apostles. And all that believed were together, and had all things common, and sold their possessions and goods, and parted them to all men, as every man had need. And they continued daily with one accord in the temple, breaking bread from house to house, did eat their meat with gladness and singleness of the heart, praising Yhwsh, and having favor with all the people. And the master added to the church, the bride, daily such as should be saved. Let me read verse 47 again. Praising the Most High Yah, and having favor with all the people. And the master added to the bride, daily such as should be saved. Another word for church you can use is congregation of Israel, or the assembly of Israel. For what was done in the new, for what was done in the old shall be done in the new. Just as you have Israelites and Gentiles in the old covenant, read Exodus chapter 12 and Deuteronomy chapter 25, as well as the other volumes of the books of Torah. It is evident also in the book of Numbers. Just as it happened in the old, it shall happen in the new. For in the new, according to Romans and the book of Galatians and the other books of the new covenant, we have Israelites and Gentiles, male and females, bond and free, circumcised and uncircumcised, bond and free, Scythian, barbarian, etc. For all are one in the body of the Messiah. So just as we read Acts chapter 2, do you see how they continue to keep the instructions of the Messiah? But they continue to break bread with one another to remind them what our Father in heaven did for us, Hebrew Israelites and Gentiles. For our Father in heaven sent his Son, that living word, that divine spirit, that set apart spirit. He sent him down in the earth to be an example unto us Israelites, because he was the only one who kept Torah in its fullness and did not break a single law. And through him, we was redeemed back to the Father. And we no longer became servants of sin. Now we became the servants of righteousness for those who receive the new covenant. Okay, but let us continue, because there's some verses I put in the box for us to review with the breaking of the bread and the washing of the feet, so you can be familiar how to do these things, so you can teach your family, so you can teach your children, so you can teach the strangers these things, because these are the things of the instruction of the Messiah, for he is the King of kings and he is the Lord of lords. And he get all his instructions, all his knowledge from the Father. Read John chapter 8 and you will see it. But first, let's open up with a hymn, because when you look in the description box, you see I put a hymn. And on these holy days, we are to what? Sing songs of praises. And after I sing this song unto you, we're gonna look at the scriptures and see what the scriptures say about singing songs, because now we are worshiping the Father in spirit and in truth. A mystery that many do not understand, because many are not born again. They're not born of the water and of the spirit. And this is why they can't understand these things. This is why they want to hold on to the old covenant and not embrace the new covenant. But let me begin. And forgive my voice, I'm going to do the best I can. It's called Nothing But the Blood. And if you want to sing along with me, you can. Look in the description box, and I put all the lyrics there and the website where I got this from. What can wash away my sins? Nothing but the blood of Yhwsh. What can make me whole again? Nothing but the blood of Yhwsh. Oh, precious is the flow that makes me white as snow. No other fount I know, nothing but the blood of Yhwsh. For my pardon this I see, nothing but the blood, For my pardon this I see, nothing but the blood of Yhwsh. For my cleansing this my plea, nothing but the blood of Yhwsh. Nothing can for sin atone, nothing but the blood of Yhwsh. Not of good that I have done, nothing but the blood of Yhwsh. This is all mine but the blood of Yhwsh. This is all my righteousness, nothing but the blood of Yhwsh. So as you reflect on the words in these songs, because all these come from biblical scriptures, when you understand what the old covenant was trying to teach us about the atonement of sins, then you will understand why the Messiah had to come and why his death was accepted by the Father to be a divine sacrifice that will redeem us back to him, because all things are sealed by the blood. Remember, the Messiah had no family, and he was an innocent man, and he was crucified by his own people, the Israelites / Jews. He was crucified by the Gentiles as well. And he suffered a terrible death, but he was innocent. But because he was innocent, his life, his blood set us free from this world of darkness, set us free from the one who had us in bondage, spiritually bonded, when you understand. Go back to the beginning, for there you will see the answer. For there will you see where it all started, O sons and daughters of Adam. Go back to the beginning. For we was in bondage to that one that hides behind the scene. But because our Father in heaven, Yahuwah, had a better way for us. See, he had an escape plan to set the captives free from that wicked one. And he sent his son, the Messiah, who possessed the fullness of Yah. He possessed the fullness of God. And because he was innocent, he was able to set the captives free. He was able to deliver those souls out of Sheol. And Sheol is located in the heart of the earth. He was able to set us free who are in the earthly realm. For even in this earth, we are surrounded by darkness. So when I look at this psalm, when it says here, "Oh, precious is the flow that make me white as snow," to understand what that means, it deals with a Hebrew word called, if I say it correctly, tishach, T-S-A-C-H. But it don't mean skin color, my brothers and sisters. It goes deeper. You have to go back to the beginning and study Genesis. But some chapters you can read about that is Daniel's chapter 11, Daniel's chapter 12, and the book of Revelation, for it deals with the righteousness of Yah. So you can do that in your spare time. So on the holy days, such as the Sabbath, we are to sing spiritual hymns to remind us of the word, to remind us of the promises our Father made to us in heaven. Now, the next area I want to read, we're going to go to the book of John, because we need to learn about the washing of the feet, because the washing of the feet are to teach us something, my brothers and sisters. Make sure I got the right chapter here. Oh, that was not it. Here we go. The book of John. If you can turn to chapter 13 in the book of John, and I'm going to read verse 13 through 18, but in your spare time, read that whole chapter. But this is what the Messiah says. Verse 13, John chapter 13. "Ye call me Master and Lord, and ye say, well, for so I am. If I then, your Lord and Master, have washed your feet, ye also ought to wash one another's feet. For I have given you an example, that ye should do as I have done to you. Verily, verily, I say unto you, the servant is not greater than his Lord, neither he that is sent greater than he that sent him. If ye know these things, happy are ye if ye do them." So he commanded the disciples to wash one another's feet, and we are to continue this, for he set the example. He made it clear that the servant is no greater than his Lord, neither is the Messiah greater than the Father. So he made that clear, Israelites. He don't put himself above our Father in heaven. So now we're going to get the understanding of verse 16 by looking at the precepts, which are Matthew chapter 10, verse 24, and John chapter 15, verse 20. So since we are in the book of John, let us turn to chapter 15, verse 20, and see what verse 16 means. 15, verse 20, for it says here, "Remember the word that I say unto you, the servant is not greater than the master. If they have persecuted me, they will also persecute you. If they have kept my sayings, they will keep yours also. But all these things will they do unto you for my name's sake, because they know not him that sent me." So the Messiah say here, you're going to go through what he went through. See, we're going to be afflicted, vexed, and oppressed because we belong to him and we keep his commandments and instructions. And the Messiah get his commandment and instructions from the Father. Again, read John chapter 8 and you will see it. He does not do anything unless the Father tell him to. And he also point out in verse 21 that those who afflicts, vex, and oppress us do not know Yahuwah. For if they know our Holy Father, they would not have done these things unto us, my brothers and sisters. Okay? Now, let's go to the next precept, which is Matthew chapter 10, verse 24. Matthew chapter 10, verse 24. Give me 1 second. I need to turn there. Matthew chapter 10, verse 24, and it says this: the disciple is not above his master, nor the servant above his Lord. It is enough for the disciple that he be as his master, and the servant as his Lord. If they have called the master of the house Beelzebub, how much more shall they call them of his household? So here he let us know, Israelites and Gentiles, we are not above our master. For those who are called the bride of the Lamb, we're not above the Messiah. He gave another example. Therefore, the servant is not above his Lord. And we're going to talk about this word Lord because I know it may offend some of you. Because when we translate back to the language, it goes back to another God. But to understand why we say Lord today, you have to read Hosea chapter 2. For our Father in heaven says this: the day would come that the Israelites would no longer call him Be-Ali, which is mean my Lord. But the day would come, they would call him Yhwsh, which means my husband. So prophecy is being fulfilled. To also understand about this word Lord, because when we look at the definition of Lord, because there's many definitions to it, it means what? Master, someone who's over you, like a leader or a king, or a person who owns you. All right. So I want you to turn to 1 Corinthians chapter 8, and we're going to read verse 5 through 6. For it says here, for though there be that are called gods, and the word gods I'm saying is lower Gods, whether in heaven or in earth, as there be gods many and lords many, but to us there is but one God, the Father, of whom are all things, and we in him, and one Lord, Yhwsh HaMashiach, the Messiah, by whom are all things, and we by him. So when we look at that verse in 1 Corinthians chapter 8, especially in verse 5, because remember, I often say this: what's done in heaven is also done in earth. For even in the earthly realm, we have many gods. And you look at the word gods back into the old covenant, you will learn that gods mean ruler or judge, someone who's over you, okay? Someone who leads you, okay? And even someone who can own you as a servant. All right. So it said here in verse 5 that whether in heaven or in earth, as there be gods, many and lords, many. Also, when we look at the spiritual realm, when you read Deuteronomy chapter 4 and Ben Sirach, which is chapter 17, you will learn that our Father in heaven put the angels over the other nations, but Israel was his portion. Israel was his inheritance. Do you see this, how this operates in the heavenly and in the earth? Okay, so there are many gods and many lords. But in verse 6, it let us know that there's only one God. That's when with the big G-O-D. And that one God is Yahuwah, and he is our Father. Because Father means what? Creator. He made us. He made us in his image. Therefore, we walk like him, talk like him, think like him. Because he gave us something special that was a part of him that made us like him. Okay, that made us like them too. That's another mission, but another video, another time. But we learned that there's one big God, and that's Yahuwah, and he is the God of Abraham and Jacob. And through him are all things made by him, and he is in us. Again, that's another mystery. Go back to the beginning, which is Genesis, for we were made in that image, and he dwelled in us. Also read John chapter 14 through John chapter 16, you will understand this as well. And then it goes on to say that we have one Lord who is Yhwsh HaMashiach, for his Father in heaven gave all dominion unto him in heaven and in earth, because he represents his Father. He comes in his Father's name, and he carried out his Father's judgment. This is why he is King of kings and Lord of lords, or you can say Master of masters. And also through him are all things, because you have to have the living word for these things to come forth. Go back. See, when the Father spoke that word, that living word, it's very powerful. It's more than just letters and words on a paper. It's the spirit. But let us keep going. So now that you have an understanding about the word Lord as well as the word God, for further study, I want you to read Psalms chapter 82, verse 6, and John chapter 10, verse 34. For even you Israelites are called gods, okay? Because the day become you shall be ruler. Also read, I think it's in Micah chapter 4 or 5. It tells you there, you'll see it too. Okay, so when you look at the word gods and Lord, you have to look at the context that's being used in this English language today to understand what the verse is saying unto you. So now let us get back on track here. So with the washing of the feet, it represents that we're going to go through what the Messiah went through. We're going to be afflicted, vexed, and oppressed because they don't know our Father in heaven. But if they had a relationship with him, if they was committed unto him, if they was married unto him, then they would know that we are his children, we are his servants, and we belong to him. They want to attack us, okay, if they knew our Father in heaven. And also they want to attack us if they believe on the Messiah. But this is why they do what they do, for they have been spiritually blinded by that wicked one who has hidden himself. They are in darkness, okay? We also learned that just as the servant is not above his master, says Lord, therefore the Son is not above the Father either. So in this body of the Lamb, known as the New Covenant, in this body, my brothers and sisters, no matter what office you hold, whether you are a pastor, whether you are a leader, king, whether you are a evangelist, no matter what office you hold, you are not above your fellow brother and sisters. See, the playing field has been leveled out. Okay. So now that we know that we're not above one another, guess what? You're going to begin to get the understanding of the love of Yah. You begin to get the understanding of the love of God. And you're going to learn how to love your fellow brothers and sisters without looking down upon them, without condemning them. Because if our Father in heaven set the example for us to follow, we can do it too to one another. Okay? So again, those who have an office in the body of the Lamb, or those who have an office in the nation of Israel, whether you are an elder, priest, leader, king, teacher, your position, you should not use your position to be, what's the word? To be over your brother and sisters in a matter where you mistreat them, in a manner that you make them feel like they are lowered than you. That's not what that office is about. You will learn that in the body of Messiah, we are servants and we are here to do Yhwsh's will and not our will. And when you learn how to sacrifice yourself, that means put aside your agenda and do my Father's agenda, then you will learn why we must humble ourselves to one another. You will learn why the Messiah instructed us to wash one another's feet. Read Leviticus chapter 6 because you will see it there. The problem with us, Israelites and Gentiles, we're not humble. We want to exalt ourselves and get man's glory and honor. But the Father told you, whatever you do in my name or in my Son's name, I will recompense you. I will reward you. So do not seek man's glory and honor. Seek our Father glory and honor for what you do. Okay. And the last thing I want to close out with these verses that pertains to reason why we sing hymns and songs, because now we are operating in spirit and truth. So even by singing a hymn or song in your heart, the Father will offer as a sacrifice. So proof of that can be found in Ephesians chapter 5. And we're going to look at we're going to be a little higher. We start at verse 18 and read down to verse 20. And be not drunk with wine, wherein is excess, but be filled with the Spirit. Now, that verse you want to underline. What does it mean to be filled with the Spirit, and how do one be filled with the Spirit? The mystery where the answer can be found in the whole volume of book, but we're going to look at the new covenant. Remember, I said the Messiah brings the fullness of Yah, and through him can you be filled? Because the words say that he shall baptize us with fire and with the Holy Spirit. A mystery that many do not understand, for they're not born again. So we must be filled with the Spirit. Verse 19, speaking to yourselves in songs and hymns and spiritual songs, singing and making melody in your heart to the Most High, giving thanks always for all things unto Yhwsh and the Father, in the name of our Master, Yhwsh HaMashiach. Verse 21, submitting yourselves one to another in the fear of the Most High. I'm going to pause there, but I want you to read the whole chapter of Ephesians chapter 5. Even in this body, we are to submit ourselves to one another. Okay? And then it goes on about the order of a marriage between man and wife. So even this body, we're supposed to submit ourselves to one another. But here's the mystery. Whom are you submitting yourself to? Are you submitting yourself to a man? Are you submitting yourself to a woman? Are you submitting yourself to children? Think about it. Whom are you submitting yourself to? The answer can be found in 1 Peter chapter 3. Okay, that's some homework for you to do. Think about it. Are you submitting to flesh, or are you submitting to, we'll leave it blank. See, this is a mystery that many are not understanding about this covenant, because again, we are worshiping in spirit and in truth. And the reason why we are worshiping in the truth, think about it. Once you're waking up, you learn that you was given what? Truth mixed with lies. Now you come into the most high truth. Now you come into the most high doctrines. Now you come into his righteousness, his ways, etc. Okay, so when we look at verse 19, we are to what? Have songs and hymns and spiritual songs, singing and making melody in our heart unto the Father. And we'll see how this counts as an offering. So if you turn to the book of Hebrews, chapter 13, almost there. Hebrews chapter 13, for it says this in verse 15. By him, therefore, let us offer the sacrifice of praise to the Most High continually. That is the fruit of our lips, giving thanks to his name. But to do good and to communicate, forget not, for with such sacrifices the Most High is well pleased. So when we do these songs like we did here, we're singing nothing but the blood. That is what? An offering unto our Father. This is how we worship him in spirit and in truth, because when you study the old covenant, the old covenant will teach you, you don't have these divine things in the earthly realm, such as the temple, such as the high priest, such as the sanctified vessels, such as the menorah, such as the altar where we do your burnt offerings on. We don't have these things now, for these things was taken away from us, Hebrew Israelites. Therefore, the Father made a new and excellent way for us, so we can fulfill Torah now. So now we worship him in spirit and truth, because we know the day would come in his kingdom, in the eternal kingdom, where we would keep Torah as he commanded, where every T would be crossed and every I shall be dotted. See, now you begin to get a more better appreciation of this new covenant for those who embrace it, for it covers you for the things that are out of your hand. Therefore, when you receive the new covenant, you shall be what? Perfect, made holy, without spot or wrinkle, because of he who dwelled in you. Not by your hand of righteousness, but by Yhwh's righteousness. A mystery that many do not understand. And the last book I want to go to is the book of Romans. Romans chapter 12, because this again pertains to what Messiah prophesies to us from John chapter 4, how we shall worship the Father now in spirit and in truth. Turn to Romans chapter 12 for me. Romans chapter 12. For it says here, I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercy of the Most High, that ye present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable unto the Most High, which is your reasonable service. And be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove what is that good, that acceptable and perfect will of the Most High. So again, as you said, we are coming out of the carnal and entering into the spiritual. Mm, mm, mm. And the last chapter for this video, I want you to read Matthew chapter 16. So it would give you understanding about the breaking of bread, why we continue the breaking of the bread. Also, when you read the book of Acts, you will see why the apostles continue the breaking of the bread. Again, it was to remind us of this new covenant that we are in and what Yhwsh had done for us by sending his son, and to remember what his son had done for us, because we are creatures who shall forget. Remember, if you don't remember your history, you're going to repeat the same mistake. This is why we must keep these things in remembrance, such as the new moon days, the Sabbath days, the holy feast days. And now we shall follow what the Messiah had added unto us, because even now a poor man can keep this too as well. But another spiritual mystery is, even if you didn't have the bread and the wine or the grape juice, my poor brother and sister, you can still keep this, because we are worshiping in spirit and in truth. See, the Messiah covers you. He got your back. But he wants you to keep these things in your heart. That's where it starts first. Hebrew Israelites and Gentiles. It starts in your heart. And once it starts in your heart, it shall manifest itself on the outside. So when we look at Matthew chapter, not 16, but chapter 26, it gives you the breakdown what the bread represents. For he says in verse 26 that he said, this is my body. And to understand what he means about this is my body, read John chapter 6, but I'm going to give you the answer. The body is the bread, and the bread is the manna of heaven, and the manna of heaven is that living word, the living word that was spoken out of the Father's mouth, that living word who is a spirit that became flesh. And as it was prophesied in the Torah, which in the book of Deuteronomy and Matthew chapter 4 and Luke chapter 4, we shall no longer live by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth out of this book here, to feed our spirit man. Okay. Now, the part with the wine or the grape juice, he said it represents the blood of the new covenant, because to seal the covenant means in order for the covenant to go forth, blood had to be shed, just like they had to do animal sacrifice to establish that old covenant that was made with our Father in heaven on Mount Sinai. So in order for a new covenant to be established, blood had to be shed. And this blood came from the Messiah, because he was an innocent man and he fulfilled Torah, and he is the second Adam, because the second Adam had to correct the first Adam mistake. Okay. And through his blood, because the blood is life, when you read Leviticus chapter 17, but also read Leviticus chapter 16 and 17 to understand why his blood was accepted as a sacrifice unto the Most High, because he was innocent. And he made a sacrifice for us, because he wants us to come back to the Father. For we do not belong to Satan, O sons and daughters of Adam. We belong to Yhwsh, the Most High God. So when we drink the grape juice, it represents his blood that was shed for us, which shall atone our sins. So now I'm going to close out with this spiritual hymn. I'm only going to sing the first verse to close this out. But remember, on the most high holy days, such as the new moon days, the Sabbath days, and holy feast days, break the bread, break it. For the flat bread represent we will no longer be filled with the doctrines of men. We will no longer be filled with the doctrines of darkness. We will purify ourselves of these things so we can be filled with his spirit. So here I go. Bear with me. What can wash away my sins? Nothing but the blood of Yhwsh. What can make me whole again? Nothing but the blood of Yhwsh. Oh, precious is the flow that makes me white as snow. No other fount I know. Nothing but the blood of Yahushua. And through him, we shall return back to the status of Adam. We shall go back to the beginning in the way the Creator wants us to be. And we shall carry forth the Torah. And every T shall be crossed, and every I shall be dotted. I love you all, my brothers and sisters. Continue to preach the gospel that the kingdom of heaven is at hand. For we are in the 7th day from Adam. See, we are in the season for the Messiah to return. For the Messiah said that we shall know the season, but we will not know the day and hour of his return. And the season is the 7th day of Adam, which is the 12,000 year from creation. Read 2nd Ezra chapter 7. You will see it in Matthew chapter 24. And as we are preparing for his coming, because we can see the signs in the heavens as well as the earth, we are to continue to preach that gospel that the kingdom of heaven is at hand. And we are to make sure the people receive salvation as written in Romans chapter 10. And baptize them in the name of Yhwsh HaMashiach, for the Lamb set the example of the water baptism and the spiritual. Of the water baptism and the Holy Spirit baptism. And the apostle continued them both. For through the baptism, it represents that we become a new creature. See, the old man is put to death, and the new man is born again. All right. I love you all, and shalom. And that means peace be with you. And do you know who that peace that is with you? Think about it. Matthew chapter 28, verse 20. For he shall be the destroyer of chaos. Shalom.